We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. This is a quote from Albert Einstein. And you might be wondering why I am putting this quote here. The answer is in my presentation. So let's get into the presentation first. How can technology can help sustain and improve supply chains in the COVID-19 era? That's the topic today, and it's a very interesting topic. And I have broken the presentation into 3 parts. The first part, I will be talking about supply chain role and how COVID has impacted. The second part, I will talk about how technology can help supply chain. And the third part, I will give you some real-time examples. Supply chain was born to orchestrate material, cash, and information flow. How many of you accept this statement? If you really accept this statement, please put a comment in your chat box. Say yes. Thank you for that. So, what does it mean? Supply chain was born to orchestrate materials, cash, and information flow. So let's go one by one. Material flow. Material flow starts from supplier, and it goes through your manufacturer, and then through to customer and reaches consumer. So there's a flow from supplier to consumer. Supply chain is supposed to manage. Information starts from the consumer and the customer and flows to manufacturing, and then it flows to the supplier. And then if you look at the cash flow, only source of cash for supply chain is customer. So the cash mostly flows from customer to manufacturer to the supplier. Of course, there are a few exceptions, like in case of rejections or returns. There might be flow on the other side, but mostly the flow is like this. So why we are saying supply chain is orchestrating the material, cash, and information flow? Our biggest role is to collaborate across value chain and make sure the material, cash, and information flow goes smoothly. March 2020 in Sri Lanka, in some other countries, different timing, we had the COVID impact. And it was a major disruption to supply chain. So in terms of people have to start working from home. But let's look at each of the flows, what happened. Material flow, port congestions, supply lockdowns, importer material, some of the markets, they had their own lockdowns. So a lot of disruption in the upstream. In terms of manufacturing and logistics, well, safety of our employees is more important. That's the biggest important point. So we had to slow down the throughputs to ensure safety of the people and ensure social distancing. So again, disruption. And then in terms of transportation, in the downstream, again, we had challenges, curfews, lockdowns, and so on. In terms of information also, we had major challenges. Look at the demand numbers, which is a major information flow that comes in for supply chain. I mean, everything is driven by demand planning. In-home consumption went up because people start staying more at home because of the COVID situation, lockdowns, and so on. So in-home consumption went up, out-of-home consumption came down. So that means the demand baseline started changing. The numbers that we have put pre-COVID is no more valid. We have to relook at all the numbers that we have been putting into demand plan. And the entire supply chain is driven by demand planning. Not only that, there are other disruption in terms of information, right? One day you will hear the port has a congestion. On the other day, you will get some issue with the supply. Quite a lot of information challenges we had. So with all these challenges, what did we do? As a supply chain team, our prime objective is product availability. When I say product availability is the DNA of the supply chain team, would you agree? If you agree, say yes. Say yes, put it in the chat box. Product availability is the DNA of the supply chain. So as soon as COVID impacted almost all the companies' supply chain, what did they do? They started firefighting to ensure product availability. They were chasing behind information, materials, right? So it's just firefighting. But the question is, you can keep on improving the way you are doing things, but there's a certain limit to improve the whole supply chain. At a certain point, you have to start asking yourself, are we doing the right thing? Our pre-COVID assumptions, are they still valid? Should we relook at those assumptions, right? So the point is, any supply chain has 3 decision levels. Operational, tactical. Tactical is planning, and strategic is basically the supply chain design. So the right solution will come only at the supply chain design, where you can do rapid improvements. Just focusing on your planning and improving the operation by firefighting is not going to help you. So before going into the supply chain design and what are the key drivers and what we need to look at, I request you all to focus on this particular slide, which is a pretty interesting and very important slide. This is the biggest trade-off supply chain managers day in and day out, right? And it's part of the strategy. Either we can be a very agile, rapid responsive supply chain, or we can be an efficient supply chain. I mean, you can achieve both things together. I mean, both are important, but you have to prioritize one above the other. Generally, FMCG companies always go behind agility and rapid response because the customer needs are very high. Maybe if you're producing commodities, maybe you can focus more on efficiency because you are fighting on the pricing. So once you are very clear what's your supply chain biggest priority, I'm not saying the other one is not important, other one also important, but you have to identify which one is the biggest priority. You have to look at your supply chain design and what are the drivers: inventory, transportation, sourcing, information flow, the operation itself, right? These are the key areas we need to relook at. In terms of inventory, of course, we have to build up stocks because the risk was right across the supply chain. So we have to build inventory. In terms of sourcing, there has been risk at certain supplier points. If those vendors are single vendor, of course, we have to look at alternate vendors. But all these drivers, one of the common thing we have to look at was digitalization and automation. Let me explain you what it is. Now, inventory buildup. What we found is pre-COVID, okay, maybe we would have had a safety stock of 2 weeks for a certain item. But when it come to COVID situation, we had to increase the safety stock. That is one. But when you increase the safety stock, the cost will go up, right? You need more storage cost. Your inventory cost goes up. So we were forced to look at a flexible safety stock. We were forced to assess the value chain risk day in, day out, and keep on changing the safety stock just to optimize, because today's risk is in a certain category. Tomorrow there's a risk in another category. So we have to keep on assessing the risk. In terms of transportation, your customers start asking, where is my goods, right? So we need to give them information, where the order is, where it is stuck. In terms of sourcing, even though risk mitigation is the first priority, we need information. Where is our shipment? Where it is stuck? What is happening, right? And in terms of operation, we have to maintain social distancing. So there's opportunity to find some automation so that we can maintain social distancing, safety of our people, and continue our operation and increase the throughput. And all these drivers requires digitalization. And when I say information flow, we need quick information, real-time information flow for real-time execution. So that is where I think there was a big game changer in my view. All these drivers really required a digitalization and automation for real-time data and real-time execution. So let me, yeah, there's small issue, just, okay, fine, right. So one of the biggest thing that came out after relooking at the supply chain, looking at the supply chain design is to redesign the supply chain as a digital supply chain. That what came in a big way. So this is very important slide. This is one of the big thing we implemented. And I would request all of you to focus on this particular slide. This is a big thing. Central control tower. You know, our normal way of working is in supply chain, you have different functions. You have procurement, you have logistics, you have planning, you have customer service. They have their weekly reviews. And probably at a supply chain level, we will have a monthly review to strategize, understand each function's priorities and challenges, and decide on how we want to operate. But during COVID situation, the context in which the value supply chain was working keep on changing. I'll tell you at certain point, morning one context, evening another context. When I say morning, certain areas is lockdowns, evening you see another set of areas are lockdown. So morning you hear supply X and Y cannot supply. Evening you will hear supply Z also cannot supply. He will take another 2 weeks to recover, right? So this is where we felt that as an operational team, we have to get together. We have to look at end-to-end information. And it's also real-time information. So we created dashboards with our talented team members and start monitoring end-to-end information so that we can take decision looking at end-to-end supply chain, not isolated decision. Because if you go on these individual functional reviews, by the time you look at all the functions issue and take decision, you will be too late, right? You have to take, the information have to be real time and the execution also have to be real time. So that is why we really make a difference. So you can see from a customer side, the mobility data is important. Because as I told you, because consumers started staying at home more. So that means in-home consumption went up. Google mobility data is a very good tool to understand how much mobile is the people. Now, as of today, people mobility is 30% lesser than the normal level in Sri Lanka. That's a very important information to understand how the income consumption will be and how much the out of consumption will be. Basis your parameters, demand planning parameters. Your suppliers need real-time data on the order status, availability, and so on, right? And what will be going out of stock, when, and so on. In terms of supplier, we have to continuously communicate to them the revised forecast numbers because the demand numbers are keep on changing. So we have to continuously inform our suppliers of the forecast increases and decreases. The lead time and the service level of suppliers is changing. That information is very much required to decide which part we have to build up inventory and what is the risk overall. And we also have to understand how much supplier stock levels. Also the cost elements in terms of vehicle fill rate. That was one of the challenges. I mean, when sometime we have to send the vehicle 70% filled and send, but it has a cost impact, right? Sometimes we have to take a decision on an air freight. So all these decisions we took considering the end-to-end situation. That will really help you to optimize your supply chain. So this is one of the great thing we did. And from traditional monthly review, we went into weekly review. And during the COVID times, we were really looking at the entire visibility on a daily basis. Some of the sourcing tools, e-auction and eCPI was available even before. Right? But we found when people work from home, we can't meet our suppliers. There's no opportunity to do face-to-face negotiation. So e-auction is a very good tool. We start using it increasingly. eCPI is another great tool. In procurement, you have to buy in a compliant way. And eCPI is a very good tool where procurement put the catalog of the pricing and the materials, and any stakeholders can go into the eCPI system, which is like an Amazon.com type of system. You can pick up the material and you can order the material straight away. It's a very compliant way of ordering the materials. In terms of facilities, as I told you, social distancing is very critical. So we look at how to run the operation with a high throughput, with the minimum number of people, right? So telescopic conveyors is a very good concept where you can prick the goods in dock level and you can push it to the trucks, right, with the less number of people. Telematic is another interesting system where you can monitor your forklift and reach trucks and look at the efficiency of them and minimize the usage of forklift and reach truck. In a typical DC, you will see so many forklift and trucks and reach trucks, and you wonder whether you need all these numbers. There is always opportunity. So telematic is a good system to understand, really optimize the forklift and reach truck. Packing line automation is another area where you can really look at opportunities. In terms of transportation, again, we created a hub there with our logistics team. GPS really helped. I mean, it's nothing new. Ocean transport, we have to track. So we work with our partners. Eagle Logistics is one of our partners in shipping, and they created a lovely digital system to monitor the shipments, where it is, and how much is getting delayed, and which shipment is getting cleared when, all the information online. So all these really helped. Now, this is a very important slide, I would say. So I would request you all to focus here. In your digital journey, in my view, digitalization is a journey. It's not about blockchains, artificial intelligence, and going to a certain place. No, you have to first understand where you are in terms of digitalization, in terms of maturity curve, right? And let me explain this slide. If you have a primitive digital system, your digital system is very descriptive. It will only tell what happened. Now let me give you an example and then elaborate this. Let's say there's a hospital, right? And suddenly you see the number of patients admitted to the emergency ward has gone up. So a descriptive digital system will only tell you how much the number of people admitted has gone up. That's the only information it will give you. The next level is diagnostic. Why did it happen? So there, same example, it will tell you that most of the patients have flu and cold symptom, and probably they have flu. So diagnostic will tell you why did it happen. A predictive system, which is much more mature, will tell you based on the past experience, maybe this will continue for another 3 months. So you will get more patients to your emergency ward for next 3 months. A prescriptive system, which we can say famously called artificial intelligence, will tell you next 3 months how much extra doctors you might need, how many extra nurses you might need, how much medicine you need to order, right? So for me, digital is a journey. You have to understand where you are, right? It's not about just the ultimate where you want to go and land, but it's about journey. Now in Nestle, we are mostly into diagnostic and predictive systems, and we want to go to prescriptive. So digital supply chain is making the impossible possible. When I say impossible possible, what does it mean? Any system in supply chain, as I mentioned before, it has there's a trade-off, right? Either you can be highly responsive while you are efficient, or you can be very efficient while you are responsive. But digital system can improve both responsiveness and cost. So it's really can make impossible possible. But remember, everything starts with your customer needs. So you might think that moving to digital supply chain will require more and more tools. Yeah, digitalization is a key enabler, especially during COVID, for you to sustain the performance and improve the performance. Definitely digitalization is a key enabler. But I will tell you, there is one more enabler which is very, very critical, right? Only digitalization will not give you all what you want. That is all about your people. And change management is the key. I'll tell you, when my team started the year, we all were together and we were discussing and brainstorming where do we want to go? And then we were discussing, why do we want to go there? Why do we want to go there? Everybody have to be convinced that the destination where we want to go, there's a big reason to go there, right? So why do we want to go there? And once you are very clear where do you want to go and why do you want to go there, you can find out what are the action you need to take. And definitely digitalization is one of the key enabler, and your action will be having quite a lot of digitalization actions. So, and by communicating this to your team members again and again, definitely you can drive this change across your supply chain. And so be an early adapter of digital supply chain and start innovating your future today. And that's my presentation. Thank you so much. And over to Shivo.
Thank you, Sati. Thank you for your presentation on how technology can enable and improve the supply chain. So this has been an eye opener for some of the areas, and good to see that how technology has impacted your organization and your team. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move on to the next eminent speaker, if you have any question regarding Satyendra's topic, please go ahead and ask on the chat box. And Sati, I have a question for you before
yes.
ask. Okay. Now you said two enablers, technology and team, right? So when you first started introducing the new technologies, was there any resistance from your team? If there was a resistance, how did you manage it?
Yeah, so I would say there was not much resistance because we were very clear on what we want to achieve as a team. As I mentioned to you, when we started the year, we were very clear where we want to be in 2 to 3 years' time. And we were very clear why we want to be there. And each and every member of the team was very clear where they want to be. Right. So digitalization is a key enabler to drive your supply chain to the destination you want to move. So people were very clear about the digitalization role. Now, when the COVID impact came, it's only that we were forced to accelerate our digitalization journey because we found that digitalization is really going to be a key enabler to sustain our performance during COVID and improve the performance.
Got it. Okay, great. So I have a question from Imam Tanvir. I believe he's from Bangladesh. So he's asking, what are your suggestions and advice for an organization who is currently in disruptive stage? What would be your advice?
Yeah, so you have to develop, you have to look at to develop the tools for the next level. So in the descriptive level, probably you can put the slide there. Yeah, so descriptive is all about what happened. But so if you can, so in our case, we develop BI reports, right? So we extract the data from SAP system, and we started developing tools where we were able to drill down and understand different subcategories, detail, cellular level, to understand where the issue is, rather than looking at a very high level, right? And by doing that, we were able to understand why did it happen, right? So it's all about developing your digital tool to a next level, right? So in a typical system, you might have all the data, but it's all about how do you develop tools to extract those data and to see at a cellular level what is happening, to understand why it happen. That's my advice.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sati. Thank you, Tanvi, for the question. Now we have a question from Mr. Rauf. He's asking, Mr. Rauf, hi. Thank you for being here. So in case of perishable goods, where do we need to emphasize to minimize the risk for perishable goods?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, this is one of the biggest challenge we had. I mean, okay, you are talking about perishable goods, but we sell goods which are 6 months of expiry and some are 12 months. But you will not believe me. I mean, some of the stock started getting aged, right? Because as I told you, out of home consumption came down. So that means the products that goes to out of home consumption start stagnating at our distribution center, right? So yeah, so there is no fixed answer for this. What is very important is the visibility. You have to give visibility of those stocks to your business. So you have to have a frequent review, weekly basis, to understand what are those stocks, where are they stuck, right? And with your business unit, you have to come out with some action plan to minimize any risk of those products getting expired. And if it expired, then the value will be zero. So you have to recover as far as possible. So even before, much before the product start losing its freshness, we have to take action. So you have to have a good digital solution to track your freshness of your products. And maybe when the product, so you have to have a target. Let's say if the products lose its 30 or 40% of the shelf life, we have to trigger actions along with the business units. What do you want to do and how do you want to avoid any risk of writing off those materials?
Great.
That's my answer. Thanks.
Thank you for the detailed answer. Great. Sashi, okay. Sati, can you hear me?
Yes. Very clear.
Okay, so next question from Tanvir. How can a supply chain manager convince the management to go to the next level of digitization? Quite an interesting question. Thank you, Tanvir, for the question.
Yes.
So how to convince the management?
Okay. Right. So, so today's presentation mostly came from my own experience, and I'll tell you how I managed it. Right. So we started in a small manner. Right. We started this digitalization journey in a small manner. Right. And every time we have a win, we used to make a big noise. We communicated to our the other senior managers on the achievement. We to start giving visibility to them on the benefits, right? And so that really helped to get a good support from the senior management, right? And so it's very important that you have to every small success, every small digitalization effort, you have to make a big noise, right? And every digitalization effort, I mean, as I told you, I mean, don't try to fit in something there to your business. Then you might fail. I mean, you have to really understand what is your customer needs. You have to look at your supply chain design, and you have to see opportunities where the big impact can come from, and then start somewhere and start selling the points. So then the people will convince that there is lot of benefit and value is coming, and definitely then your management will start supporting. But in my case, as far as Nestle Sri Lanka is concerned, as a business priority, we had digitalization as a big priority. So it came from top actually. So in my case, it was very easy. But to answer this question, I would say if your top management is not convinced, then you have to start showing the value by starting small.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tanvi, for the question. Yeah, so one last question from our side is, Sati, do you think as a supply chain manager or a supply chain vice president, now self-development or education is important? Because you're at a pinnacle level, you are the vice president of supply chain of Nestle Lanka, right? So do you think still learning is important?
I think it's very, very important, and I have to thank Shuo, you and Ijazur for introducing to this particular supply chain management course. And I'll tell you, it was a lovely experience for last 2 months. Because, see, in one way, I got really jealous about this particular program, because, the 20 years experience I have gained was put in a very summarized form and was put it in a nice curriculum, and it was presented to the students in 2 months. So I was really impressed with the program, the ICA certification program. It really helped me. 70% of the stuff there I know before, because we have been applying those principles, but there was another 30% which I really learned as new area. So I feel learning is lifelong, and there are a lot of opportunity. I would say this particular ICA program is really great. Thanks, Shuo, for that question.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you, Sati, for taking action. So if there are any other question, please put it on your chat box. Otherwise, we'll move into the more exciting part of the session.
So I'm going to ask a quick question as I begin. How many of you think that a large portion of China's orders will actually go out of China? In the sense, large portion of China's manufacturing facility, which are used by others in the world, will actually leave China. How many of you think so? Because of what has happened in the world, how much? You think so, right? Some of you are thinking so. Yes, very good. Is it going to be a big portion? Is it going to be a small portion? What's your best guess? Big, okay. One road, don't know. Just use your head. Just to, I'm just trying to see how you're thinking. Okay. Now, I'll begin with an angling example. When you try to catch a fish, right? What do you put on the angling, what do you call the hook? Do you put a food that is tasty to the fish or a food that is tasty to you? Do you get my question? You definitely try and add something to the hook, right, to catch the fish. So I want to know, yeah, somebody has written something interesting to the fish, right? I believe that's what every one of you will accept. Now, none of us put a food in the angling hook that is favorable to us, right? Not to the fish. Because by doing so, we'll not be able to catch fish, if not anything else. If we have to catch fish, we have to put the right kind of food in the hook of an angling stick, right? So that the fish becomes attracted to catch that, and we can catch the fish. Now, the world has between 7 and 8 billion people, right? Do you all know that? And all the goods and services that are created in this universe are primarily for whom? For human or something else? Can some of you answer? All the goods and services are created for human or some other thing, some other being. It's human, right? So if a country like China, which has so many people, like 1/6 of the entire world's population, I want you to rethink as we go through the presentation whether China is actually going to lose many businesses. Many of the countries will remove their manufacturing facility from there and go to some other country. So keep that in mind, and let's see if you can find a good answer in this. So my presentation is not very fancy like Mr. Safi. His one had a lot of extraordinary visuals, which I do not have, unfortunately. I tried to keep it as simple possible. Visual would have made it even better, but unfortunately I could not. Pardon me for that, but I hope you'll get the benefit anyway. I don't know why it is not changing. Okay, I think it has changed. You can all see the screen, right? You can all see the screen?
Can see the screen, yes.
So I'm going to start with research from Mitsui and Company, who are into global strategic studies. And it's a report that came out in August 2020, so very, very recent, which talks about supply chain transformation that is underway in Southeast Asia. Now, yes, the production sites in China for export to North America are already in the momentum, and they are getting shifted to third countries due to a few reasons, and the reasons are also very critical. One is the continuously rising labor cost in China. One is tighter environmental regulations as they're becoming big, a lot of factories, and they're also tightening up the environmental regulations. And more recently, the confrontation with the United States, that became a big one. So Southeast Asian countries, particularly Vietnam, has already started getting the advantage, and many others are in the process of getting that advantage. I believe you already know these facts. And this relationship that China and US has is only likely that it's going to deteriorate further during this, even though we have this coronavirus pandemic. And the political momentum in US is increasing to diversify or decouple supply chains from China as far as the American investments are concerned. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian countries remain the promising candidates for such production relocation. So that's one of the research report is suggesting. There's also growing momentum to strengthen the resilience in procurement of supplies, which are related to the citizens of individual countries. For example, I'm sure in Sri Lanka you had challenges, supplying safety gadgets, right? The masks and shields and so on. Did you have a challenge, Shubho, in Sri Lanka? Quick supplies for those? Mask and sanitizer and everything?
Yes.
I'm sure many of you had that, yeah? So that's what most of the countries have faced across the world. And that's why they started rethinking that products that are strategic, right, which are critical, whether they should have it in-house. So that's another movement that's happening. And they are considering domestic production of such strategic goods, right? Medical equipments, pharmaceutical products, and so on. So that's also happening in terms of creating resilience at a country level, because more than anything else, during this coronavirus pandemic, countries have become more resilient about their own people, about their own citizens' lives in most cases. Now, this is another report from World Economic Forum. So I wanted to ensure that you start believing these reports because these are thoroughly researched, very extensive, a lot of resources have been engaged and so on. They are talking about two changing forces in Asia and the Pacific, so which combines a large part of the globe, particularly in the Asia Pacific region. The most exciting number is that in the Asia Pacific region, we already have more than 1 billion. We already have more than 1 billion middle class people only in Asia Pacific. And that is forecasted to reach about 66% of world's total middle class population in just 10 years from now. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, does that hint us that business will actually more happen in this part of the world than the western part of the world? What do you think? How many of you think, based on these numbers and so far what we have discussed, that there will be actually more business in Asia and Asia Pacific rather than the Western world? How many of you have started relating that already from this presentation so far? If you can relate, say yes, I can. Anyone else? Okay, I've seen 2 responses. How about others? Excellent. Very good. So you are able to now relate that with this size of a population, 66% of the world's middle class will be in this part of the world, in Asia Pacific. So where would you do the business then? In this part of the world or the other part of the world? Here, right? So the continued prosperity of this part of the world, the new consumer class, will actually challenge the long-held concept that the eastern part of the world produces and the West consumes, right? Could you follow, everyone? What has happened in the past? Things that you and I have seen from our childhood, we have been producing and shipping it to the West. So eastern part of the world has been the producer, western part has been the major consumer because they were economically more fitter, right? More smarter, they are more powerful economically. But that thing is also shifting. That's also changing. As a result, because as I mentioned in the previous slide, that Asia Pacific middle class population will be crossing 66% of the total world's middle class population by just 10 years from now. Now look at this one. Those of you who thought China will lose a major portion of their production capacities, and here you go. As a result of this, China, which is the largest economy in the region, will continue to have a profound impact on how the global supply chain is restructured. If they have the population, if they have the market, shouldn't they control the major supply chain in Asia? What do you think? If their people can buy more, if their people have bigger capacity to buy, shouldn't they have a big control in the world supply chain in Asia Pacific? Yes or no? Can you relate, everyone?
Yes.
This is an important assumption that you and I have to agree before we proceed further. Do you see a reason why China should be still controlling or dominating? Because they have the, the right kind of customers who will buy these products and services within Asia? Yeah? Awesome. So with this assumption, with this agreement that I have got with you, what is the second changing force that World Economic Forum is suggesting? The second one is a wave of populism, which has prompted policy actions to reverse globalization efforts. Let me quickly explain what that is. You can see in many countries in the world, populism is about doing things for general people, the ordinary people, and paying respect to their ideas, paying respect to their needs. So this way, yes, please. Is there a question? Yes, please. Okay.
No,
so these,
go ahead.
Okay, no problem.
Have the Q&A at the end.
Yeah. Okay. So this wave of populism will also become a major reason, to change things in Asia Pacific, right? As we look ahead, as we can see, even in the US, trying to help the United States citizens, Donald Trump's administration is trying to do things that favors the Americans, but not necessarily very careful about what's happening across the world. So the same thing will happen in other parts of the world, right? And what would happen by more campaigning on the wave of, this populism, which is about, telling people, the general people, that we care for you, the low friction environment that we all enjoyed in the world, moving physical goods and raw materials from across the border, from one part of the world to another part of the world, it is no longer going to be granted. There could be change anytime. So let me quickly explain this one. The wave of populism will actually generate and propagate an idea across the world that we are here for our country people. We are here to listen to you. Donald Trump will say, I'm here to protect the Americans first, right? And the same thing will happen in other parts of the world. I'm sure in Sri Lanka also you have started seeing that, right? Bringing things in-house, doing things in-house. Look after your people first. See what's happening across the world now. Everyone has gone for lockdown. They have stopped encouraging visitors to come and visit them, right? So the type of, benefit we had in the past, moving goods from one part to the other continuously without any barrier, that may actually become very temporary because of this second force that has been seen in Asia Pacific, and this has been reported by World Economic Forum. Now, let's check against these two forces. Let's check the realities in Asia Pacific region. What's really happening? Let me highlight a few facts so that you all can relate this and understand where the world is heading. Ernst & Young, you must have heard of this famous consulting group, who deals with the financial aspects as well. In their Capital Confidence Barometer, they provided a glimpse on Asia Pacific's executives who are thinking of their supply chains, and they have, Ernst & Young has actually designed the survey in a manner that they could compare how the Asia Pacific executives are thinking compared to the global counterparts. And you will be shocked with the number that 67% of Asia Pacific respondents, which means the supply chain managers or business executives, they are thinking that they are taking steps to change their supply chains, which means they are more into the understanding and acceptance that for us to survive going forward, we have to change the supply chain, which compared to the global respondents is about 52%. So which executives are thinking more to change their supply chain? Asia Pacific respondents compared to the global one. Yeah, brilliant. So you're getting it. Let's continue with the reality check a little more. So the Asia Pacific cohort, this group is actually ahead in most measures of recovery planning. Please have a look what's happening with their recovery with regard to post-COVID-19 scenario. And you've just seen in the previous slide, if I may remind you, that they are thinking more of changing their supply chain compared to their global counterparts. So the Asian, thinkers have been probably smarter. So 3 areas that has been highlighted in the survey where the Asia Pacific cohort is actually ahead in most measures. The first one is 55% plan to change management of workforce compared to 39% globally. Let me quickly explain. As Mr. Sathi was mentioning, the biggest thing that has happened during the pandemic is humans have gone through an experience that they have never gone through before. So the way we used to manage people even a year back, and the way we will be managing people after the pandemic is over or post-pandemic time will not be the same. Are you with me? Would you accept that our mentality has changed? Our expectations have changed. Our life's realities have changed. So we need to be managed differently. We need to manage our people also differently. Yes or no? Brilliant. So this has changed a lot. Frustration, depression, worry, thinking about life, thinking about relationship, lot of things has changed. So in Asian managers context, the Asian executives context, 55% already are planning to change the way they manage their workforce, working from home, what type of facilities they'll be given, and so on, which is only 39% globally. 47% of Asian executives plan to change the speed of automation compared to 36% globally. So again, Asia is actually ahead because they are seeing that this is coming their way. Yeah. Thirdly, 39% plan to change digital transformation compared to 31% globally. So gentlemen and ladies, who is ahead then? Asia Pacific or the West? Are you all getting it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is how we all know this, that the resilience consideration will rebalance a company's priorities going forward. In the whole world today, when the world is, all the business organizations are reporting their sales turnover, their profitability. Now, the number one question that they are changing now in the COVID situation or the post-COVID, this will also continue, is how. For example, if a company is exploiting its employees to earn better profit, then that's not a good practice. What they're saying is pay more attention to the people, because how you deal with your people will form a basis of measuring you or your company, whether it's a good company or not. Yeah. So this resilience has become just as important to strategic thinking with regard to cost and efficiency. So China's continued effort to move up in the supply chain, because they're, as you have seen in the previous slides, that the cost has gone up. So they'll try to push towards the higher end of the value chain and produce things that are more expensive, where expensive labor can work, right? And it can fit in their maths to earn the required level of profit. So China's continued effort to move up the value chain, combined with a massive domestic consumer market, are the deciding factors for many firms in Asia to adopt a new strategy called China Plus One to supply chain management. It is not minus China, right? China will be there because they have massive consumer base of their own. So for a country which already has huge market, which has already become the world's manufacturing basket, and which has a huge consumer base which it can feed, why would it go to another country? So for its own benefit, plus the global companies which produces for Chinese people, right, who has plants in China, they will also have no reason to move out of China because the market itself is so big and they have so many customers. So the new strategy that the world experts are looking at is China Plus One. Now, for products and tasks that are labor intensive, low value, the business activity will diversify to other regional locations like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Pakistan. For apparel manufacturing, for electronics, they might go to Vietnam, increasingly Thailand and Indonesia for toys. Thailand, of course, is the largest one anyway for such products worldwide. And to maintain productivity and profit margin, the factories that we are questioning today, whether they will relocate from China or not, they will actually maintain productivity and profit margin. To do that, these factories will have to accelerate their adoption to digital transformation, automation, where the production robots, 5G communication links, IoT devices, system software with AI, and digital capabilities will play a key role. So as far as China is concerned, which is such a large market, they have their own market as well for consumers, and their labor is expensive. They will have to very heavily go on automation, digitalization to reduce the cost and use robots and AIs and so on. So the new 3 R's for going forward for supply chain is something that I'll finish talking with, and then one more slide on the way forward. So these unexpected disruption from the current pandemic with the negative consequences, that provides an unprecedented opportunity for business to act now and assessing business impacts in the near, medium, and long term. Let me humbly remind you, I believe some of you already know, companies like FedEx, companies like Microsoft, companies like GE, companies like Airbnb, companies like WhatsApp, all these names that I mentioned to you, please go and Google for yourself, were actually born during crisis. So when we have pressure, as the wise men say, the crisis or necessity is the mother of innovation, right? So when we have necessity to rethink and redo things or save our people, save ourselves, we all innovate. So necessity is the mother of innovation. So all these companies, the famous companies name that I mentioned to you, were actually born during crisis time, economic crisis, world war, and all those stuff. So this is an opportunity for every business to relook at their supply chain, how they design their supply chain, how much dependency they have on others, and redesign. So the 3 R's that are being recognized as important going forward for the Asia Pacific supply chain are responsiveness, reconfiguration, and resilience. So you got to cut down on lead time, respond quicker, right? With short lead time, quick response in terms of design to finished product. And we need to reconfigure our supply chain to fit in what is being expected. Quick example could be companies like Zara, who are shutting down many of their outlets across the world, who source heavily from Asia, have also gone for e-commerce. So for the e-commerce business, they need a quicker response. For the outlet-based business, they need a little slower response than the e-commerce one. So the companies or the factories that will support customers like Zara will have to reconfigure their supply chain. And finally, resilience, of course. Each time you have a big hit by something, how quickly you get up. Whether you have systems and processes in place to show resilience and get back to normalcy. In terms of way forward, a few final suggestions again from HBR. The first one is uncover and address the hidden risk. Even if you have never done an audit, in the past, this is a good time to check what are the hidden risks that your supply chain has. At the same time, identify where you are vulnerable, where you might face challenges going forward. What are the dependencies that you have? Thirdly, diversify your supply base. So don't put all the eggs in the same basket. Even if China is the cheapest, the last several decades, the world has more focus on efficiency, and that has actually, reduced the capacity for being agile in the business. It was too much cost driven. So you need to diversify supply base. Hold intermediate inventory or safety stock. Even if you did not hold stock before, if you went for just in time and so on, that may not work. You need to hold inventory with your own location, your partner's location, but you must plan for it. Keep intermediate stocks going forward. And finally, take advantage of process innovations. Multinationals survive with 2 big capabilities. The first one is they're process-oriented. Second one, they improve continuously. They focus on continuous improvement. So pretty much going back to the basics. If you uncover the risk, if you identify vulnerabilities, take action to cover for them, diversify your supply base, hold intermediary stocks, to what you call balance against or safeguard against the potential challenges. And finally, take advantage of process innovations. Continuously innovate your process, take advantage of automation if that is feasible for your company. So the question that I began with, is China going to lose a major portion of their manufacturing capacity? What's your answer now? Gentlemen and ladies who are listening, if you kindly write.
New perspective.
Now, tell me another way. So we are in Asia. Based on what these world best organizations have shared, World Economic Forum, the Harvard Business Organizations, and all Harvard Business Review. Now, what's your feeling now? Do you feel deprived being in Asia? Or do you feel you have world of opportunity? Which one?
Positive.
It's very positive, right? We have a lot of opportunities. We should not be afraid. Look at the way Asia has been anyway blessed by the God, right? We have less effects than the other part of the world. Yeah, we have world of opportunities. So stay positive. Like I can tell you, those as Mr. Shubha has mentioned at the beginning, that I spent 4 years in Sri Lanka, and I am quite proud when I share it with other Sri Lankans that I'm like half Sri Lankan. Why on earth, right now as I talk, in Bangladesh, a cauliflower is just about 10 taka, which is about 20 rupees in Sri Lanka. Why in Sri Lanka it has to be 500-600 rupees? Think. I'll finish with that little exciting news to you that in Bangladesh we are buying potatoes at 10-20 taka, and in Sri Lanka you're buying it at 120 rupees, which is about 60 taka, about 6, 7, 8 times. Over to you, Shubha, and over to the audience. Thank you very much for your patience in terms of listening and getting, or trying to figure out what I was trying to share. I hope it was useful. Thank you.
Good presentation.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments?
Yes, thank you, Izaz, for your contribution. I loved your ending. It was so brilliant and very practical. Thank you for bringing out that cauliflower example and the potato example, because being a Bangladeshi staying in Sri Lanka for 15 years, I always thought that why it is like this. But of course, now we know why it is after doing the CSCM program, what we have done last 2 months. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this is your opportunity to ask from Izaz any question that you have. Before we go on, I would like to ask you a question. Did you like what Izaz shared? Do you think it is useful? Do you think it is practical what he's saying? If you think it's yes, please type in yes on your chat box. Please type in yes on your chat box. Great. Tanvi said yes, of course, it's useful. Definitely. Yes, get some feedback. Great. Ashraf said yes. Great. Okay. Malinda said yes. So, Izaz, just to get back to you, now you were saying that, okay, we're trying to figure out, okay, what you said. Look at the feedback from the audience. They actually got it what you said. So, so anybody would like to ask a question, please go ahead.
I think there was one question on the chat. If you
okay, Tanvi is asking you said Asia Pacific would Asia Pacific, will that include Australia too?
Yes, it will. It will.
Cannot hear.
Can't hear me?
Yeah, now can hear. Yes.
Yeah, it will include Australia, of course.
Okay, great.
I think the question above was about populism, right? If you scroll up, there's a question about.
Yes, there was there was one question by Tanvi himself. I think I missed.
No, go up. There's something on populism. I think I have seen.
Yeah, 10% and 20. I also saw that.
Yeah, I think populism. So yeah, here it is. Could you define and explain populism again?
Yeah. Okay.
Excuse me. So populism is about, these leaders that we have in the society, be it political or national leaders. It's about their idea that they want to do something with ordinary people. They care about the ordinary people. They look forward to support the requirements of these ordinary people. So that's populism. And by doing so, this is more like a leftist thinking, that they're trying to reduce the gap between the elites and the poor. That's populism. So when the politicians and the leaders across the world are actually promoting this idea that I am here primarily for you, my dear people, that is becoming very popular, and that's giving them score. And to earn more score, they are actually promoting this excessively across the world. And that is creating a different type of patriotism in people that, yes, we should first protect ourselves. So, in fact, there are many debates across the world now, whether populism versus, one country, one purpose, protecting our own people, whether that should be promoted more. So there is plus and minus in both. But looks like the world has come to a stage because of this pandemic where countries are now forced to have more agenda supporting populism. I hope that satisfies you, whoever has asked the question. Thank you.
Tanvir is the one who asked the question. Thank you, Tanvir. And I have a question. Now, you mentioned going forward, we have to diversify the supply base. So is there any parameter how much we need to diversify? Or can we predict at this point?
In terms of supply source, is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good question, Joe. If you look at the global supply chain arrangement, I was mentioning about Zara. See what they do. They produce, if I talk of Zara, I'm only referring to the apparel now. They produce a portion of the garment in Asia, and they also produce a portion of it in Europe. So one might think, why on earth they'll be producing in Europe, which is so expensive? So what they have done, based on the segmented market that they look at, customers who want a rapid response, who want quick change in their style, who are able to or who can afford paying high price for the products, those products are produced in the West. And those where the lead time is not very critical, the customers are not excessively style sensitive, right? And they can afford to have a long lead time to produce, those products are produced in Asia. So likewise, irrespective of the size of your company, things that are critical, you would like to design your supply chain in one manner. Things that are predictable, can afford a long lead time, you can probably still look for a very cheap location to produce them. So doing so, as I mentioned, strategic products, as I was mentioning in one of the slides, many of the countries are now refocusing their supply chain to try and produce their strategic products within the country so that whenever they want it, they get it, even at a cost of, sacrificing on efficiency, even if the price is little higher. So in terms of diversifying, you should only look for cheaper sources where you can afford to have a long lead time, your responsiveness requirement is less, and risk of producing it outside is also less because it's a very common type of thing, not very sensitive. You can produce anywhere. You can quickly shift what you call supply sources. If one supplier fails, you can go to another. Those things you can outsource heavily. And in terms of putting it in multiple baskets, yes, under any circumstances, no supply chain expert will guide you and tell you that put all your eggs in the same basket. While this is true, there's another campaign that we preach, across the world today. Don't have excessive number of suppliers either. You need to reduce the number of suppliers, not increase the number of suppliers. Many people with very conventional supply chain thinking will think that having many suppliers is very useful. We are not saying many, but you should have multiple so that you can spread your risk, right? But don't have too many. Rather, you have limited number of suppliers and make them your strategic suppliers. Give them large volume so that they can stay with your relationship for a long term. And that way you can bring more benefits to the business. If you have too many suppliers, split the orders, your order size gets smaller, and you don't get maximum benefits or in terms of best price, best terms, and all those. So diversify based on a few of these principles, and this will help you to rearrange your supply or supply base rather with the suppliers.
Great, thank you. But okay, a very obvious question is that you said most of things going to happen in Asia. So why do you see how Sri Lanka can benefit out of that? What are the ways?
Seeing and knowing Sri Lanka, I think Sri Lanka has a very, interestingly, a very strategic type of a location in the globe. Many of the shipments happen through Sri Lanka, right? That's one thing. But if you just look at the island itself, the type of natural benefits it has, right? The type of things that Sri Lanka produce, being one of the smallest population country in the world, but then again exporting things and so on. I know that Sri Lanka exports tea, gherkins, Haley's Group produces surgical gloves, and they're one of the largest producers in the world. Shipping is a big thing in Sri Lanka. I think the politicians or the leaders or the decision makers in the country should seriously look at reshoring. Reshoring is opposite to offshoring. So reshoring certain things back to Sri Lanka and try to produce strategic things within the country. That's one. Two is because of the strategic location, as I said, exports to many places are easier. Sri Lankan export rules, can be relooked at to encourage more exports to happen from the country. You can, like many other developed countries, you can bring in people from other part of the world if it is a people-intensive, industry, or else you can go for automation. And the country has ample amount of space. Even compared to Bangladesh, it's nothing. In Bangladesh, we have, like 10, 20 times of the population in the same size of, land space compared to Sri Lanka. So you can imagine how much potential you have in Sri Lanka. You have many unutilized lands now, a lot of opportunity to create more industry, in the land of Sri Lanka. So whether it is manufacturing or service service is also another area Sri Lanka could look at, because we have highly educated people in the island, right? And many of the Sri Lankan managers are working in Bangladesh, working in India, working in Middle East, right? Working in the West. So that's also the manpower export can continue to happen. While if you want to produce certain things inland, then you can bring the technology, bring people and produce it in-house. I think Sri Lanka has a lot more potential, lot more potential. It's a peaceful country, quite stable. There's no war now, right? And people love to go to Sri Lanka. It could be tourism is another big thing, which was the case before. I'm sure this will come back soon.
Great. Yeah. Right. Actually, that leads me to the next question. So these our ISEA, what are they doing? What kind of qualification they are providing? Because there is a huge opportunity, and opportunity becomes reality when the skill meets the possibility, right? So, in order to do that, in order to get the maximum out of this, how ISEA can contribute, ISEA Learning can contribute to individuals.
Okay, thank you, Shubho. Well, ISEA, as those of you who are listening about it for the first time, is the first organization worldwide to certify supply chain professionals across the whole world. It was born in 2003, and its head office is in Ohio, in the US. And as far as Bangladesh is concerned, this is running since 2010 for the last 10 years, and it has created a revolution in the country. It has qualification for entry level, for managerial level, for leadership level. It also has qualifications which are function specific. For example, next year we are introducing 2 certification programs globally. One is on warehousing and logistics, and the other one is on healthcare supply chain. I'm sure Sri Lanka will heavily benefit from that. It also has specific programs on demand-driven planning. It also has programs on sustainable supply chain. Many, as I said, they keep innovating. At the end of this year, we got a new version of CSCM, which incorporates project management, SCOR model, digitization, many other things have been added in the CSCM program. So this will be offered from February next year. We have already got the final contents. It looks very, very exciting. Actually, Shubho and you, when you joined, it was not there. You continued with the last batch. Just now it has a new batch come. But I have a plan that all of you who have done towards the end of this year will probably bring you in some sort of a forum and allow you to focus on those new things that are being added. We'll invite you for free, don't worry.
Wow, that'd be good. Wow, thank you so much. Wow,
so Sri Lanka, more than Bangladesh, whenever I talked about it, Sri Lanka has more reasons to have more supply chain professionals, even compared to Bangladesh. So this has not happened in the past, but we look forward. Success Zante is active there. So hopefully, in fact, I was told yesterday that even other organizations are approaching from Sri Lanka to become ISEA partners. So I need to dig deep into it. Now everyone is excited about holding ISEA there. So that's a good news. I'm told a famous organization from Sri Lanka has approached. I'll share the details. So those of you who are still thinking, and Shubho, you can also let the audience know that the type of prices that are happening now probably will continue till the first quarter of next year, is lower than the price that ISEA offered 12 years back.
Wow, that's a very good news. We thought actually it's going to go up from January, but if it's first quarter, then I think
looks like because the pandemic is continuing till the time the vaccination is done, probably it's not going to go up in January. Probably it will continue till about March. So encourage people, those of you who know, those of you who already joined, or if your friends have to join, this is an opportunity to gift your friends with a New Year gift. Right?
Yes.
As Sati rightly mentioned, after 20 years, he found as if the 20 years experience have been bundled in a package, right?
And he was jealous.
And those of you, Madhujit also joined, those of you who joined, you would understand. So such a practical knowledge, right? It's all work based. That's how you can relate better, and you feel good. Even if you had sudden, dots that were not connected before, you can connect them better. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Any final question?
Actually, not only that, I would like to share. Even though I have a zero.
One person has asked about. Can you please?
ISCA in Middle East, especially Egypt.
Yeah, ISCA is very much present in Middle East. Two countries that you can easily refer to. One is Saudi Arabia. One is Dubai, UAE. In UAE is very much available, right? So please connect with one of them. If you can actually send your specifics to Mr. Shubho, we'll let you know where you can connect for your programs if you're joining from Middle East.
Yes.
Middle East, of course, as I say, is in UAE. Certified Supply Chain Manager is a hotcake program, right? Everyone get a job when they do that.
Oh,
yeah.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you, Izaz, for your time. And we overshot the time. Sorry about that. But then again, I thought the conversation was very useful. And thank you, everybody, for joining and being a part of this webinar series, which will happen. We're planning to have it every fourth week of every month. So this was the first one with two eminent speakers, Satyendra and Izazur from Bangladesh. And we are very glad to partner up with Sri Lanka's only supply chain magazine, eVisible. We are very grateful and thankful for joining hands with them and then bringing this program to you. And definitely there will be more program coming in. Please look out for it.
The most profitable companies in the world have learned to use their supply chains to keep goods and services flowing into the marketplace. But supply chain processes are only as good as the people who keep them running. Supply chain employment opportunities are constantly being created, and ISCEA certified professionals are getting the best paid jobs. If you wish to become a sound supply chain professional and gain real-world experience and knowledge, then ISCEA is your one-stop source for supply chain education, certification, and recognition. ISCEA is the International Supply Chain Education Alliance. We were the first organization certifying supply chain professionals around the globe, and we remain the worldwide authoritative resource for supply chain career validation, with thousands of certificate holders commanding top-tier salaries. Our certification programs are aligned with best practices and industry-proven standards. They bring together academic research advances and innovative industry trends, validating that you have the knowledge used by top companies to remain competitive in an ever-changing business environment. For your company, that translates into significant cost reductions, faster revenue growth, and a collaborative teamwork environment. For your career, it means exceeding everyone's expectations and taking control of your future. So, what are you waiting for? Stand out from the crowd and take your career to the next level with an ISCEA internationally recognized supply chain certification.